Hey, my name is Eric, and I like to joke that before I ever had to run payroll for my own company, that I used to look like this, and now I look like this. And the reason I joke about that is it's been a long process for me to get to the point of making this review for Gusto. And if you're familiar, Gusto is an online tool that you can use for running payroll for your business and also running HR and benefits for your business as well. And it's actually the third option that I've used in the last 6 months for payroll. And I finally feel like I've figured out the right kind of mix for my business and what I'm trying to do. Now, if you're in the same situation where you're trying to run payroll and you're looking into things, it's extremely frustrating. And the path that I took to get to here was I originally started out with QuickBooks Payroll, and then I went to a local company at the advice of somebody else, and then I ended up at Gusto with the advice of about 20 people. So the first thing that I want to talk about is QuickBooks Payroll. So the reason that did not work out for me, and I think it has a clear disadvantage compared to Gusto, is that they will take your money, get you set up, but then they'll start sending you warning messages and saying, hey, you need to do XYZ because you just ran payroll, but you forgot about this and you need to do this. And in my opinion, the QuickBooks Payroll is set up so that they can get you into the service, have you running payroll, and then they start sending you messages to say, hey, you missed this, you forgot this, you didn't do this. So the nice thing about Gusto, really, in my opinion, is besides the price point, because it's one of the cheapest services out there, is the amount of attention to detail to getting set up with the service. Because every business is going to be a little bit different. So what they do in the beginning is, if you were to use my link in the description below, which I would appreciate because it helps support my YouTube channel, the first thing it's going to ask you is if you've run any previous payroll this year. The reason for that is they're going to have to take that payroll information, add it into what you're doing in the future, and then submit all your filings that you need to do based on those numbers, not of just what Gusto has done, but all the payroll you've done for the year. But those simple questions that you run through at the beginning of getting set up, what it's going to do is it's going to create a step-by-step checklist of things that you need to do on the left-hand side of the screen. Now, my number one piece of advice here, and you may be the same way as me, where you have no problem watching a YouTube video like this, but you hate picking up the phone and calling somebody. And that's definitely true for me when it comes to payroll. And the reason for that is I feel stupid and like a fish out of water. I'm a creative and I like making content and I like doing different things and consulting with businesses about marketing. I'm not somebody who knows the ins and outs of payroll. I don't know the difference between a W-2, 3, and 4 is. I get a little mixed up on what a difference between a 1099 miscellaneous versus NEC versus whatever the next one is in line. All these things kind of confuse me. So before I called that number that I'm highlighting on the screen right now, I felt a little nervous, doing it. And the guy who picked up on the other end couldn't have been more awesome walking me through everything. I literally just stayed on the phone for about 30 minutes and he walked me through every single step getting started. So just to kind of backtrack a little bit though, of why I like Gusto compared to a lot of other services. In my case, specifically going with a local provider for payroll and then also QuickBooks Payroll. So in this particular case, what we're looking at here is form NYS 45. So you're in a different state probably. It might be a different form or different things, but basically this was never set up correctly for me. And then once I got into QuickBooks Payroll, all of a sudden I started getting like, hey, you ran payroll, but these forms are due and these forms are due. And then I got a email about it. Then I'm emailing people. Then it's saying this is due. Then I'm emailing my CPA. Then I have questions on it. Then I have more questions on it. Then I have more questions on it. More questions, more questions. And you can imagine how frustrating and just stressful that is, especially when you're getting letters from the state saying, hey, you owe taxes. Why haven't you paid on these? And for me, it's because I don't know what I'm doing. And I want to do this DIY route because I don't want to work with an overpriced company. But at the same time, as I was trying to do payroll through QuickBooks, in my opinion, what they did is they got me in the door and started taking my money. But then once they started taking my money, they're like, oh, by the way, you need to do this, 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 and this. And I found that really frustrating, where with Gusto, I found it's a little bit more labor intensive on the front end. And I think that's the correct way of actually doing it, because it's forcing you to make sure that you are doing everything you need to do before you run that first payroll. So in my opinion, that's why I liked it more than QuickBooks Payroll. Now, at the advice of a friend, they said, you know what, you need someone local to be handling your payroll. And I don't always think that's true, but he recommended this company, and it was just a nightmare getting set up. And when I say this company, I'm not going to show you what company it is. I'm in Buffalo, New York. There's a local company, but they use this kind of payroll. So this one's called Evolution Payroll. So a lot of these local payroll providers are using like these national services such as Evolution Payroll, but you can tell right away when you're looking at this compared to, Gusto, it is quite a different experience. Gusto looks much cleaner and easier. And then you go over to Evolution Payroll here. There's from my local payroll provider. A really good example is like if I'm looking for like information on some checks that I've ran, right? What we can do here is I'm going to click on payrolls. and then you can see this and it says it's processed, and then I'm going to click on this. If I want to pull something from that payroll, this is the way that this would work on this particular provider. I'd have to send it to a task queue, and then if you go to the task queue, it's going to have some requests and blah 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 that's happening, and then with a few minutes time there's going to be a document that I can download. It looks like now it is finished, and it's just really messy and just hard to use, very difficult to use. The other thing that's difficult with these types of services is they haven't really figured out all of the steps to make things easy. So let me walk you through Gusto just a little bit right now. And I also mentioned too, you might notice Bench up here. If you're not familiar, Bench.co is an accounting service that can actually help you with bookkeeping. So for me, I got set up with them. I did have a bookkeeping service with QuickBooks that was available, but I tried it 3 different times. The first meeting I liked, the second time was a repeat of the first meeting because they didn't know that I'd already taken the first meeting. And then the third time they took my money and then said, oh, we can't actually help you with this. And then I had to go through this lengthy process to get that money back for bookkeeping. At the end of this video, I'll talk about Bench some more. That's a different topic, but just know that if you are looking for bookkeeping and accounting to marry together well with Gusto, that's the way to go, is set it up with Gusto and Bench. And for that as well, I will have a link in the description below. I appreciate you using my affiliate links as it helps to support my YouTube channel. So why don't we take a look at some of the payroll that I've run and what it looks like when you actually get into the program itself. So the way it works is you really want to start with your people. So that's where you're going to enter all your different positions and different people. And then the other nice thing too is if you're getting into hiring and you're putting a new person, there's going to be an onboarding process, onboarding tools. It's just going to have everything that you need to do your HR as far as onboarding, or if you're firing somebody or letting somebody go, as it's usually called, that's all in there. If I want to run a payroll, the nice thing about this is some services, they will charge you per payroll that you run. Now, if we're looking at Gusto's pricing, why don't we take a look at that real fast? You'll notice that they kind of tout it as transparent pricing. It starts at $19 a month in the basic, works its way up to $149 a month for the concierge, and then it's $6 to $12 per month per person. Now, in my case, what I ended up going with, and for context, I am a solopreneur, but I am set up as an S Corp. The reason for that is advice from my attorney. Basically, when you're set up as an S Corp, you can save on taxes a little bit. And if you're curious about that, I will link to in the description below the difference between an S Corp and an LLC. There's a calculator that you can use to see how it would affect your taxes. But the two main differences here, there's a 4-day direct deposit with basic. It's a 2-day with the core. But really the thing that I really wanted was the payroll on autopilot. So if you go with the core one, I think it's worth the extra $20 that you can just automatically do payroll. You don't have to log in each week to do things. Another thing that might be interesting to you is the Gusto Wallet. That is a mobile app. Something like that's helpful if you have an employee that calls in and says, hey, I got to use some PTO today. You can just open up the app right on your phone and just register that they use PTO or different things like that. Or if you got to run a payroll really fast, you can do it from your phone. So these are some reasons why you might want to get into the core package. Now, going back to this here, as you're watching this, you can do a lot of different things. You can run a payroll. So there's a run regular payroll, and you can see that mine is already set up to run. That's because I am in the auto payroll. You can do bonus, off-cycle payroll, payroll corrections, non-Gusto payroll, and dismissals. Now, as far as paying contractors, so this is something you can set up in here as well. One thing to know that if you are thinking about going to Gusto, probably the number one reason that a lot of people won't use them is if you have contractors that you want to pay through your payroll or employees that are overseas. Right now, if my memory serves me correct, Gusto, you can have employees that are in Canada, US, New Zealand, and Australia, I believe. But if you had somebody in India that you needed to pay, Gusto's not going to be the best service for you. If you do have that situation, you might be better off using QuickBooks Payroll, which does allow for international employees. So unfortunately, that's the one drawback to Gusto. So the reason that I went with Gusto, though, is I kept on running into these issues, right? The first was with QuickBooks Payroll, and then I'm getting all these notices, and there's taxes not being paid, and it was stressful, and I had to get all that stuff figured out. Then I went with a local company, but they were charging me per pay period that I was running. So then I was only running payroll once a month because I didn't want to get charged an extra $30 every time I ran a payroll, and I felt like I was getting nickeled and dimed. And then, as you saw earlier, the actual back-end software leaves a lot to be desired. And then Gusto, though, it was just a lot cleaner. So I presented this actually to a group of a networking group that I'm in. It's digital entrepreneurs, and these are people that own 6, 7, and 8-figure businesses. And there was 23 comments, and 20 of them on this Facebook post that I put up. 20 of them were Gusto, Gusto, Gusto down the line. So getting that kind of positive feedback from people in my networking group was like, all right, I'm sold on this, let's do it. Some other things to keep track of, there's a neat feature with time tracking, so you can time track for projects. So I've yet to use this, but where this would be really helpful is the fact that you can create projects, track time, and see workforce costs. The reason that's helpful is what they're gonna do is it's gonna factor everything in for that employee. So taxes, everything, so that if you're billing out a client, you know what your hard costs were actually for tracking the time of that employee on a project. So stuff like that's super, super helpful from an admin side, because too many times businesses are quoting out and not thinking about all of the costs that are associated with that employee that might be working on that project. Time off is super easy to set up. PTO, if you need to do that, they have time off policies, sick time, holiday pay time. Everything's very easy to get set up and going. Benefits, very important to cover. So you can do health benefits, health reimbursement, and commuter, which is helping your employees spend less money when they commute to work. Active benefits that I have right now, I do not have any set up for myself. I currently do have a 401k, but I do that through Vanguard just because I like the pricing over there. But if you need to get anything like this set up, they can help you out with that as well. So very cool stuff there. Staying compliant, of course, that's very important. So employment tax reporting and payments, new hire reports, worker compensation, labor law posters, everything you need as far as staying compliant with your business is available to you as well. If we take a look at taxes and compliance, you have some quick links into register with the state tax agency, view tax forms, report a notice, anything that you have kind of going on with your tax and compliance, they can help you out. So another nice thing too is that you have a national company that's going to stay on top of changing things, such as the PPP program and different things you need to be aware of with that. Where I think sometimes for like a smaller local company, it's harder to like stay on top of that kind of stuff, where this service seems to do a great job. And where I see this a lot is actually when I log into my dashboard, there'll be stuff on the sides here where it'll talk about for your business, and it's just like different things that are available to you. If I get any notices or recommendations, they'll show up over here. And then one of the things too that I want to highlight is when I'm running payroll. So if I want to run a regular payroll, a bonus payroll, whatever it may be, I'm going to click here, run regular payroll. And this is the really nice thing too, is it's super, super easy to understand where everything is going. So let's take a look at a past payroll period. So if you ever want to see like a recent pay stub, right now I am in the admin function of Gusto. So what you can see up here, it says admin. If I want to switch to the employee profile, as you'd expect, it's going to have less options over here on the side. So as the employee, here's what I'm going to see with a pay stub, right? I can view a pay stub, and then it very neatly organizes all the information on here and gives you everything that you need to know on the employee side. But if you want to look at it from the admin side, again, I would switch to the admin profile, and I would find this person under people, and this is me. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to look at most recent pay stub. So again, like getting back to why I'm actually set up as an S Corp, I pay myself as an employee of the business. The salary that I take as an employee is fully taxed, but if you're doing something as a distribution, you can save on taxes on some of the employment taxes. And it's interesting too, because they give a nice clean breakdown of what the employer and employee is paying if you're looking at this right here. And you can just get some very quick, easy information as you're running a payroll. So what I can say is I do love working with Gusto, and like I said in my networking group of digital entrepreneurs, highly recommended from some serious entrepreneurs. And what I'm going to be talking about in this next video is I'm actually going to get into bench.co. So if you're looking for bookkeeping and accounting that can merge and link with Gusto very well, in my opinion, it's well worth the money spent, because you're going to free yourself up to do what you do best, and that is running your business, not worrying about admin, payroll, and all of that. So again, guys, I'll catch you in this next video, and thank you for using my links in the description below. I truly appreciate it.